Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm delighted and privileged to once again welcome a very highly respected person from the world of academia, Professor Pradip Khandwalla from India. Professor Khandwalla, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Professor Khandwalla is the former director of the Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad. He has authored 16 professional books and over 100 papers. He's an author of a book titled Fast Forward Towards Civilizational Greatness, an Agenda for India. So today our conversation will only be around his new book. So, sir, let's talk about your book. Can you give us a brief overview of your book?
Surely. The book was published in 2017, and I was lucky to get a grant from the chairman of Wagh Bakri, Mr. Piyush Desai. And it was published for no profit at all by Ahmedabad Management Association and Academy of Human Resource Development, both in Ahmedabad. That was it's 16 chapters, 388 pages. The opening chapter lays out my core theme, if you like, the paradigm of civilization greatness. It affirms that civilization greatness becomes possible when you blend three great traits: creativity, compassion, and competence. Creativity, as you know, is something that's novel, that is also useful.
Yeah.
Compassion has many dimensions to it.
Correct.
Kindliness, concern for others, willingness to sacrifice for others, and so on and so forth. And again, competence is professional competence plus vocational competence plus desire to achieve collectively or individually. This achievement drive, if you like. So it's not narrowly defined terms, but broadly sort of, in the context in which they are right. So that was and what I have argued is that when you blend these together, there is an upward virtuous cycle.
Okay.
Because when there is creativity that is benign, well-meaning, humane, and it is implemented well through competence, then there is a lot of success, a lot of satisfaction. And that begets the urge to do more of it.
Right.
It becomes an upward cycle, and it goes on. And eventually, whether it's an individual or a group, a family, or an organization, or a civil society institution, or the state, or society as a whole, it is an upwards kind of cycle for each of these if they fuse these three together. This was my core theme, if you like.
Fascinating. But before we go further, sir, I wanted to ask you, how do you define civilizational greatness? What is greatness?
As you know, greatness is something beyond the ordinary. That's a broad understanding of greatness.
Right.
I don't think you can define greatness except to feel it. In the presence of greatness, you feel it, that this is something extraordinary. You can't measure it easily. Although later on I'll talk about some of the indicators that I mentioned in the book, or whether we are making progress or not towards greatness. But nonetheless, greatness is something that is unusual, but unusual in a good sense. A great sportsman, a great writer, or a great statesman, or a great human being like Gandhi. The greatness just oozes out.
Right.
It's there, and you feel it. As human beings, we are sensitive to greatness. So that is what I mean by greatness. It's not easy to define, except to say that if you look at statistical probability distribution, then it is at the very sort of right hand side.
Correct. Well said. Well said.
Yeah.
And what are the key elements you have identified, sir, that will contribute to India's civilizational greatness?
The key elements I've identified are, as I said, not only society as a whole, but its major institutions. The beginning with the individual, the family, the community to which people belong, or community units to which people belong, the state and its various organs. What else? Oh yes, so civil society institutions, and of course the enterprise sector, enterprises. So when you have all of these things, and what I've tried to do in the book is to take each one and then say what can make that entity, human entity, move towards greatness. I will not say great because that's very difficult to defend, but I'll say move towards greatness.
Well said.
By combining creativity, compassion, and competence.
Amazing.
That is what I've tried to do. But I can go into more detail if you like.
No, please tell us. I would have asked you in any.
I began with education because I think the bringing up of the children is a vital and foundation of, if you like, of any society aspiring towards greatness. Unless you get that right, you're not going to build a great society. It may look great, it may look very powerful and very economically developed and all that, but it's flimsy. It doesn't have that kind of foundational strength. And that foundational strength comes when you look at education and grooming, family grooming, as well as education in schools, colleges, higher institutions, and so on. And I have given a great deal of importance to that in my book. And maybe I should give you some examples of that.
Absolutely. Please do so.
I'll have to consult my notes because lots of things are there. 1 second. Yeah. I will begin with my own school because that's I've been most involved with.
Yeah.
One of my schools, I went to 3 different schools, but the one that I was most influenced by was New Era High School in Mumbai. It was a Gujarati medium school, but we also learned Sanskrit and Hindi and English. So it was quite cosmopolitan. More important, Tagore and Gandhi were the icons. We even had a teacher who had been to Shantiniketan. And so he told us a lot of stories about Tagore, and he had translated many of his poems into Gujarati. So from that childhood, we had been exposed to the best of India in the sense of Tagore and Gandhi. One in arts and the fine things of life, the other in determination and compassion for the lowly and underprivileged, and desire to regain independence for India, and truth, and so on and so forth. We know Gandhiji very well.
Yeah.
So these two were great influences in my life, and New Era High School provided that influence. That was one thing. There were many other schools also which I would like to mention. Many other institutions, not just schools. Another institution of interest is Educom. What Educom does, and that's based in your part of the of India, you probably know the people there. Educom is very interested he's one of the students from IIMA, by the way. He pipes into a classroom very exciting audiovisual instruction. Teacher is there, the teacher teaches, and mostly it is cramming and all that. But there is this vividness that is brought into the classroom. A lot of background research is done. If, for example, you're talking about the battle between the Marathas and Abdali in 17 something or 16 something, and where Marathas lost.
Right.
Now, that is just a note in history that Marathas lost the battle.
Right.
But bring it alive by showing the two formations, the strategies they followed, why the Marathas lost the battle, and so on. That makes it so exciting for the child.
Correct.
And it thrills him. It really energizes the curiosity, the creativity, the imagination that the child has. So that was something that I thought I would mention to you because I think it's and not very expensive. I mean, thousands of schools. I think about 15,000 schools in India adopted that thing.
Amazing.
I don't know what happened to that institution, but Educom was in a bit of trouble. But
I believe so. But
financial difficulties of some kind. Another one was Gyan Prabodhin in Maharashtra. Now, this is again a very interesting institution founded by an RSS man, but he was a nationalist, not just a very narrow-minded
Yeah.
Hindu person, but somebody who really had a passion for India. And many things they did. But one thing that was very interesting was he was also very interested in entrepreneurship and creativity and resourcefulness. So teams of children would be given, say, 50 rupees. And they would be told, in 4 hours, you come back with 100 rupees. Now, see the dynamic of it. The children would be so excited and they would think of many, many different ways of trying to double the money in 4 hours. So that is one thing. Secondly, the other interesting thing that was done at Gyan Prabodhini was that where there are trouble spots in the country, Kashmir, Punjab, wherever else, in Maharashtra, Gujarat, wherever, teams of children would be sent there to interview people to learn at first hand what were the problems.
Wow.
Now that, the amount of compassion and the understanding the child develops into social dynamics is wonderful. So that's a second example of third example of what I would call creative education. Shreyas is another school in Ahmedabad, which had it is now not done, but it was done by many years. And we used to attend its Mela, annual Mela. Now the Mela was very interesting. They would pick up a state of India, like Kerala or Maharashtra or UP or whatever, or even a country like Bangladesh, Sri Lanka. They would send a team of students and teachers to that place for 1 month or what. They would meet a lot of people, collect a lot of cultural sort of photograph things, tape record things, and so on and so forth. And then maybe 1 or 2 persons would come over from that state to Shreyas, and there would be an annual Mela where all of these things would be projected for people. And hundreds of thousands of people saw those Melas every year, including myself, and my wife and my daughter. So this is again something where children are empowered to create. And to create in a very nice way.
Very interesting.
And it's something that lives for one of my friends, Mihir Bhatt, Ella Bhatt's son. He went to this school and told me that even today, the Bengali folk songs are in his mind. That impression that when you actually go there and you hear baul music, that is a very different experience. So that's something again that I thought was very interesting.
Very fascinating.
I also came across very interesting things in post-school education institutions. For that, I studied 9 different outstanding post-school education institutions. Excuse me. I don't know whether you've heard of Lok Bharati.
It's a
Gandhian institution in Saurashtra. 2 management schools, SOIL, School for Inspired Leadership, perhaps you know, and Institute of Rural Management, Ahmedabad, IIMA, 2 schools, 2 management schools, 2 professional institutions, NID, National Institute of Design, and National School of Drama, 3 universities, Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Mumbai, and Banasthali Women's University. And the 9th was the National Defense Academy. So I looked at all of these institutions and I came up with some 4 takeaways that I'd briefly like to mention. One was that all of them were strongly committed institutions, committed to either a mission and or a vision of excellence and or core values. And this was very, very excellent because, say, Banasthali Women's University, for example, that was committed to blend Western rationality, if you like, Western science and rationality, with Indian spiritual values. Okay, this is very important for our country. And SOIL, as you know, has a vision of training leaders of enterprises who are anchored in Indian spirituality and goodness. Okay, holistic thinking. Lok Bharati was an institute that was Gandhian and therefore propagated not only education, but actually manual work along with education. And of course, moral education is well, Gandhian moral education. and so on. India accepted the mission of guarding India, which is well known, and so on and so forth. Now, the point is that when an institution is committed, it attracts people.
Correct.
It attracts people who have that kind of commitment to it, not because of money, but because it's close to their heart. Similarly, attracts students who are close to that is close to their heart.
Correct.
So you have got an institution that is a magnet. Now, IIMA, for example, when I came to IIMA, that was the idea. I came at 70-80% decrease in my earnings, what I was earning in Canada. But not only me, it's quite a number of faculty members came away from the West to be able to teach at IIMA, because the mission of IIMA then was to professionalize Indian enterprises so that they can contribute to India's growth and development. That was the idea. We didn't come because of the money. Money was peanuts.
Correct. Correct.
So that is such a powerful magnet. And so that was something that is very important. I would certainly and therefore say that every post-school educational institution in India should, with the help of the stakeholders of that institution, sit down together and evolve a mission statement, a vision statement, and value statement, and periodically assess whether they are making progress along that mission, vision, or values. Otherwise, it's a meaningless thing. You just have a statement somewhere, but it doesn't mean anything.
Correct.
But it has to be tracked.
Correct.
It has to be pursued. It has to be. So that is something that.
That's fascinating. So that part is fantastic with the points you made on how education and value-based education is one contributor. I'd also love to get your perspective, sir, on the diverse cultural heritage of India. And how our diverse cultural heritage can contribute to civilizational greatness.
You know, we are so lucky, actually.
Absolutely.
Very many people think diversity is a curse. People can't agree, they can't see eye to eye, they quarrel all the time and so on. That was true in the past when there was a very rigid caste system that made it very difficult for people to interact across the caste hierarchy, and a very rigid religious system which made it very difficult for people to interact across religious boundaries. Today, those things are falling. Not fallen, but they're falling. In cities, certainly, you go to any company, you'll find a Muslim, a Hindu, a Sikh, a Jain, a Parsi, all sitting together and working together. You look at dress, how dresses have changed, how food has changed.
Correct.
You know, sitting in Ahmedabad, I eat very often idli, dosa, and so on, and eat Bengali food, rasgullas, and etc. etc. So there is this mingling that is happening, which is very productive because it also leads to fusions. You know, it's not just that I take something from Bengal or from Tamil Nadu or Kerala. I also then Gujaratize it, make it into a Gujarati friendly.
Absolutely.
So for example, I can't take chili, so then the curry has to be much milder, or other ingredients have to be poured into it. And that kind of fusion is going on a vast scale in this country.
Absolutely.
Language-wise, culture-wise, religion-wise, yes, there are spots here and there. And you have to worry about that. I won't say that we have to worry about that, but diversity, I think, is a huge advantage for India because of the cross-pollination that is taking place and will take place, and the kind of creativity and goodness that it can create. So I don't see that as a problem. I see that as an opportunity with some problems attached to it.
And how can we as a nation and as such a diverse country leverage this diversity and see it as a strength rather than in our quest for greatness?
There are a couple of things that come to my mind. One is that we have got a diaspora, 32 million strong diaspora. People of Indian origin.
Correct.
Now, my suggestion is that for every 10,000 Indians living abroad, appoint a cultural ambassador. Pay him fairly well. And give him enough materials about India, past as well as present, about freedom struggle or developmental growth in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and to date. And let them go out and talk to not only the Indians abroad, but also to their friends who are Europeans or Americans or whatever. So that kind of diffusion. Plus, I would say that we should translate 1,000 works, best works in the Indian languages into English and Hindi. Okay. And then, in a sense, distribute it fairly cheaply across the world. Not only within India, but across the world. So that the world gets to know what the great minds of this country have thought, what the great writers of this country have thought, the painters, musicians, and so on have contributed. And I think that is one way by which we can leverage India's. As I said, I am not very fond of this great power, superpower notion.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That is an ego trip. And basically, we want to feel we have been oppressed people in the past. We've got inferiority complex still. And we want to feel that we have got a major say in the world affairs.
Correct.
Fine. I have nothing against it. But I'm simply saying that my vision is that of civilizational greatness, civilized greatness.
Correct. Correct.
And for that reason, I would say that we should communicate to within India as well as outside India the very best that India has produced.
Well said. And you also just spoke about translating, say, 1,000 works, just as the number you said.
Yeah.
But I wanted to get your perspective, sir, that out of the 7 major religions of the world, 4 are from India: Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, and Sikhism.
Yes.
What is your view on the contribution that India can make as a civilization when it comes to the learnings from our scriptures of these Indic religions?
See, Hinduism didn't exist 2,000 years back.
Correct.
The Sanatana Dharma.
Absolutely right.
And these are, if you like, byproducts of that Sanatana.
Absolutely. I agree.
So I think what we have to contribute to the world is this. Not Hinduism. We may call it Hinduism.
But it's Sanatana.
What is not the Devis and all that.
Correct.
It's and whatever. But the core idea of spirituality, that every one of us is spiritual, that we are all united by our spirituality. World is one family, as I think I'm saying. And that is what we need to propagate, because that is the religion of India, not Sikhism or Jainism or Hinduism or Buddhism, but the Sanatana Dharma inside. That spirituality is there, and that spirituality is what makes us human beings. That if we can propagate, and with whatever modern sort of packaging we may like do, artificial films or whatever, that is okay. But that is the core thing that we need to communicate.
Wonderful. And my last question for you, sir.
Yeah.
You have seen the world. I mean, you've lived in Canada. You've, studied in the US. You built and worked in the Indian Institute of Management. You've got such an amazing, vast experience. What role do you see India giving our own, and I agree with you, superpower, etc., is to be set aside. But from a civilization perspective, what role do you see India playing on the global stage in the coming years?
My personal view is that we can be a great role model for many, many developing countries and many developed countries as well. If we can harness creativity, compassion, and competence, so that whatever we do is benign, creative, and competent.
Right.
That itself becomes a role model for the rest of the world, because many nations in Africa are still struggling very badly. In South America, there is constant strife and again problems. Southeast Asia also there are problems. And in America itself, America itself needs to learn a lot from us.
Right.
Because although it's a superpower and a great economy and all that, look at the level of violence in that country. The kind of, it's really mind-boggling. Racism, the violence, the gun sort of thing. So, divorce rate, 50% of the marriages break up.
Correct.
This is not a good society. It's great in some ways, but it needs to be more humane. It needs to be more creative in managing its problems. And I think that is what our role should be.
Correct.
We should not throw our weight around like great powers like Britain and France in the 19th century, or USA and Soviet Union in the 20th, and now China and USA in the 21st century. Well, they got their own agendas and they do what they want.
Correct.
But
Correct.
India should not get into that power game. We should get into humane game, creative game,
Well said.
compassionate game.
Yes.
That should be our role.
What a great response. And I have to ask you one more last question, sir, and this is for the very, very large number of young people
Yes.
who listen to our conversation. Given the incredible demographic dividend that we have of such a large young population, what role do you see the young in India play to help India achieve greatness?
Can I share one thought I have?
Absolutely, sir.
Expressed that in my book also.
Yeah.
Look, the dividend is there and industry will prosper and so on and so forth. That we know all of that. Well known. My concern is we must produce millions of change agents of people who are in the countryside or people who are in disadvantaged communities. So my idea is that every year we should take in on a voluntary basis 1 million young people in the age group of 18 to 21. Okay, and for 1 year, total immersion, both boys and girls, and they should be exposed to the best teachers of India. Again, they can do it very easily through internet and telecom and so on and so forth. And we should give them basic understanding of what is it to be a citizen, to be a family member, to be a competent person, a creative person, a compassionate person, to be able to, at the end of that year, he should have got training in at least one vocation so that he could start an enterprise of his own or her own. So that kind of a holistic training for 1 year, in 5 years, can you imagine? We would have 5 million young change agents who would be trained to bring about change in the family, in the local community and the village and so on and so forth. That is what I think would be a powerful way of doing it. And yes, it will cost money, but nothing really compared to the thousands of crores that we are spending every year on various things.
Absolutely.
This is investment in human capital.
Absolutely.
And one that is very different from anywhere else done. There have been countries that have had 1 year of military training and so on and so forth for young people. But this kind of holistic training, yes, there should be yoga, there should be some self-defense capacity built into the person, some understanding of what it is to deal with the opposite sex. This is also very important.
Yeah.
And our heritage, our Sanatan Dharma, if you like, plus the best in literature and so on and so forth, arts, music. So that if we can create 5 million young people who are change agents, who have been trained to become change agents throughout this country, look at the impact that would have.
Absolutely. What a powerful thought. What a powerful thought. And on that note, sir, when your amazing thought, create 1 million change agents every year, and I think that'll make such a big difference. Thank you for speaking to me about your book. Thank you for talking to me about creativity, compassion, and competence. Thank you also for talking about the amazing idea of creating one cultural ambassador for 10,000 members of the Indian diaspora. And of course, thank you for talking to me once again about your journey, about the amazing schools that you have either gone to or been associated with. I think every conversation that I have with you enriches me personally, and I'm sure enriches all the viewers and listeners as well. Thank you, sir, once again.
Thank you for your kind words. Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.